Okay, so this is the recording for November 28th. Apologize. We're going to put sessions on to our application. Okay, our Angular side of the equation. We did the whole thing on November 21st. Now we're going to do it for the students. This is actually the old one. I haven't changed. I just wanted to point out I haven't changed anything with this. I did note that when I was working on the homework, I did note that this was a problem. It doesn't do required. Required comes out blank, which is a problem. So I did, in fact, need to do that. It does work for the ones that are, like it needs to be a number. It needs to be an integer. Watch 1.3. It does do them for some of them, but it does not do it for the other ones. Okay. And so that's a problem. So you can actually fix it, but I'm not worried about that. I showed you a path to do that. I'm not actually interested in that. What I did want to show you though, was quite frankly, that we are going to use the same code. I want it to be very clear that we're going to do that. I'm going to leave that running. I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. And then I'm going to open November 21st. This is the one with sessions. Now, bad news, right? Literally nothing's going to work. And you go, wait, what? Literally nothing's going to work. We'll talk about it in a minute, but nothing is going to work. Okay. Right? We set up a system by which you have to be logged in to even get a list of the users. So, ta-da. And sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing here. If we look at our developer tools, we're going to note we're going to get a 401, right? That means that we're unauthorized. That's what 401 is. It's unauthorized. Row Shaggy. Well, that just means we have to log in. But the fact is that we shouldn't be able to get to add student. Yeah, sure, none of it'll work. Watch. Even if I get a good student number here. Hold on. I closed it with a keyboard stroke. Didn't mean to do that. I don't know how I did that actually. Right? But even if I put in a major here, right, I get 401 errors, right? And obviously I'm not going to get a list, so we can't get to edit, we can't get to detail, we can't get to anything. Because now we require login. So we're going to actually need to do, before we do anything else, we're going to need to stop the system. And we're going to go ahead and generate a component. And it's a login component. Yay. We're actually not going to quite create a service for this. Obviously we can, but we don't really want to. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we're going to create a login component. We're also going to create something called an auth guard. The guard's going to actually prevent pages from loading, right? Like, so we shouldn't be able to get to add student, right? And getting to add student without being logged in should send you to the login page. So we'll be generating that as well. As well as, you see the 401 check here. We're going to be able to, if that 401 happens, we're going to go ahead and send the user to the right page. I'm going to set that up, but we're actually going to use the authorization guards to actually prevent routing to pages that require logged in. But first, apologize. Not sure what's going on with my chest right now, but we're going to go ahead and first, we're going to go ahead and create that login. Unfortunately, I didn't open any of this stuff. So we only need source today. We're not going to need any. Shh, my dog's whining here. We're not going to need anything but the login part for a little while. Okay, we're going to do a logout as well. And one thing I'm going to do as well, I'm going to generate a class called user. It is going to make my life easier. And I'm going to create the user service. It's going to be easier to do it long term. I can put it all in the student service, but I'm going to go ahead and create the service now that I'm thinking about it. And that's going to just make my life easier in the long run. But okay, the first thing we want to do is we want to model the endpoints. So go back to student service. And now we have a user service. Yay! Student service is going to look pretty much like the user service is going to look pretty much like the user service. So I'm actually going to copy the constructor. I'm going to go ahead and add the import. I'm going to leave the students. Okay. We're going to look at the endpoint for our guy again, because, you know, maybe you don't remember what it looks like. We put them all in student controller. It's still students, but it's going to be login and it's going to be log out. So those are our two endpoints. We don't probably need a URL, but we're going to go ahead and leave the student URL. And then we're going to say login, right? And we're going to say user. Oops, that's not how we do this in Angular, right? We do user, and then return HTTP host. Remember, we log in with host, and we're just going to return the user. And login, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. I am apologize. I'm having one of those days. All right, so now it says import. Oops, nope. It doesn't want me to import it. Why not? Let me import you. Okay, it's not happy at all with that user. Okay. Okay, so quick point. Right, so we have student. We don't need student in the other class. We don't. Oh, I see what's wrong. Think that should be just this. And it should be just user. Bang. So that grabs my observable. And then I need the observable as well. Ta-da. Yay. So we log in. It's going to send a log out. All right. So now we're going to just do log out because we're here. And so we're going to do it. We're not actually going to log out for quite some time. It's literally going to be quite some time before we do a log out. So remember with log out. Oh, God, I can't find it. Hold on. Yeah. We're going to invalidate the session and just return a string. So we don't really need to do anything. And that is a get or a post. It's a get. So that's a get. So we don't actually. Oh, wait. Sorry. I am brain farting here. We do not need any inputs. So that is where we go wrong here. You're still going to return a string. So you still need that part because it's still going to return a string. And then you're going to do, I'm just going to copy it because I'm just going to be easier to copy. And I'm going to just set it to be log out. And then get rid of you. And it's not post, it's get. And that's my log out, right? We can call log out from anywhere we have a user service. That's going to work out great. Badish news. How are we going to be able to call log out? Well, we're going to deal with that later on. But right now, right, we have the injectable. Okay. We have a mechanism for logging in. We have a user. Now, our user service, we're going to actually do a couple things. We might not even use these things, but we're going to go username. Going to be a string. And we're going to go password. That's going to be a string. And we're going to go admin and boolean. Now, why are we creating these exactly as we create them here? Because we want them to be passed between the two. So get set is set. That's going to actually pass these things when we come through. So we'll be able to actually check for it. Okay. We can do some funny things on the client side. So we want to make sure that we're using the server side code as much as possible. Okay. So now we have a user service. Let's go to our login page. And surprise, surprise, what are we going to need? I'm going to say, welcome to Student World. Right? Or how about, please log in. Okay. Boom. Now, what I'm actually going to do is grab student detail. I know it's not going to be like the funniest thing you've ever seen. I'm sorry. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to grab a couple of the TRs, not all of them, just a couple. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to paste them. Boom. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Boom. So actually, I want this there. I'm going to show you why I want it there in a minute. But I'm going to say username. And yes, there's going to be a form here. Well, I'm just doing like this, by the way. I'm just so we're aware, I'm going super fast. I know I'm going super fast. I'm trying to. I'm actually trying to go super fast because this is just repetitive. I'm going to create a form for a, what you call it? I want to use a table. We'll see why in a minute. And then I'm going to go to add student. Any one of these is fine. And I want the form. And then I'm going to grab, so I'm going to replace that with the form. And then I'm going to go back and grab the couple things, but I'm going to start by grabbing the submit and reset buttons. And we're going to go to login. Bing, bing, bing. And we're going to put this in the, all right, so I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to put these in this, and I'm going to set col span equals 2. Because I want to put those two in the same one. Boom, boom, boom. And note, I didn't do anything. I left it all the same, right? This should actually be login, right? I'm just copying and pasting it, right? Ultimately, I'm functionally copying and pasting it. So then I want to go to add student component again, and I want to get an input field. It doesn't matter which one I get. Actually, I'm going to get a couple things. I'm going to get an input field, and no. It'd be a lot easier if I got the input field from the name. Bink, bink. All right. Yay. All right. So then we go to login component. So kind of screwing this up a little bit. I'm not really, but okay. So the first one, we're going to put the name. We're going to put the login, right? Or username. And then we're going to put, this doesn't go there, by the way. Well, I'm going to show you some alternative way to go, essentially. Oh, I didn't get the actual name field, did I? I grabbed everything but the name field, of course. See what happens when you try to go fast. I do want the name, the module, because a login, right? We're going to keep it simple. And so it's just an input text field. We're going to actually put user instead, and user dot username. I don't know, why is it uppercase? That doesn't seem right. That does not seem right. Let's double check it. It's not. So we want to be exactly the same. Right. And this is uname. Okay. This is a lot simpler. What we're going to be doing is a lot simpler than some of the other stuff we've done in terms of validation. We are going to validate, but we're going to actually keep it really simple. But actually, I'm screwing this up. That's the reason I did this. Now we have the password. going to change this to a password field. And obviously I'm going to, oops, I need to change this to uname, right? Actually should be, this did actually pose a problem later on. So we'll do it that way. And then we come along and the field name is literally going to be password. It's going to be user.password. This is going to be password. You notice there's no admin here because we don't care. We don't validate on the other side, so that's fine. As long as there's a username and password, it's going to be fine, right? Obviously, on the other side, we should validate that it has a username and password. But remember, if the password's blank, it's just going to come up as blank, and that's going to be fine. So, all right. Yay. Now we have the login component. Okay, that's the login component test. We go to add student component. We want the ng on init piece, because of course I do. Right. We're going to set the title service. Notice I'm not doing anything right now. Yes, I had a problem earlier, and so that was fine. I want the submit. There's more than that I want, obviously, but that's the start of it. And again, I'm going to fix that later. I come back and get the student and the constructor. And so we're going to go ahead and get the student and the constructor. And of course, we don't want that to be student. We want that to be user. We want user equal new user, right? And of course, we're going to need to import it. Boom. Router, I'm going to need to import you. We don't actually need the student service for this particular application, so we don't really need it. But I am going to change this to user service. And then I'm going to change this to user service. That should automatically import it. And then lastly, we need to just change the title. And we'll go ahead and fix you. Yay. So I'm going to just change login, right? That's a title. I like to do this user part, right? And then, of course, everywhere the service is, I'm going to go, oops, everywhere the service is, I'm going to go ahead and replace the service. This doesn't matter. We don't ever have a 302. We just have an error. Boom. All right. Now, we have a couple of issues we need to deal with. Okay. Number one, we are going to bug out. We are going to go to student list, and student list is immediately going to work. Yes. We also going to need to save in some way. Remember I said you can save locally information about the user. We have two options. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we do that, if there's an error, we're going to stay on the page and we're going to set a field. Remember the field we did for where SID already exists, basically. I'm going to say UP issue is a password problem. And by default, we're going to say false. But as soon as we have an issue, we're going to set this to be true, and we're going to remain put. Oops, it should be this dot. There we go. And we're going to set that to be true, and we're going to remain put. We're not going to do anything. Okay, I'll explain why in a minute. So we have two issues. So just like SID already exists, if the username password fails, right? If it fails, you're going to get an error, right? And remember our error from Trogan, right? You're going to get a status unauthorized, or you're going to get an OK, right? Those are your two options from a login perspective. Excuse me, from a login perspective, you're either going to get an OK or you're going to get an unauthorized. Really, no matter what happens, right? Those are your two options. So any type of error, we're going to say this UP issue is true. That generally means the username and password doesn't exist. That's what we're going to say, essentially. If you log in, though, we are going to bug out to student list, right? That is going to happen. But before we do that, we actually want to store locally in the Angular application a notion of a login. And you go, wait, what? So we're not going to store the whole username and password. We don't need the password beyond the login, right? But we are going to store the set item, and we're going to set a string. So we're going to go ahead and set the user to be this dot user equals data, right? We don't care about that, but this does make it easier to grab it as a user object, and you'll see, right? So we can now say user username, right? Because now we can grab the objects. Oops, it should be this, right? So now we can actually grab this user and then bing, bing, grab the username. So we're going to go ahead and set the storage. And we're also going to session storage. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. If this dot user dot admin equals true, right? It's got to be true. We're going to also set that they're an admin. Then we're just going to set it to be true. It does need this, unlike the JavaScript side, this does in fact need to be a string. Using session storage does in fact save it local to the browser, which is great. But session storage tools is only for the session. So the browser side is going to remain the session. There's another way to go, and we're going to talk about it later. I'm going to comment them out. We're going to go local storage, and it's the same code, right? So I'm not actually going to retype any of it. I'm just going to paste it, and then local storage. Now, a couple of things. Once we're logged in, we can check to see if we're logged in, right? But it doesn't really matter because now the server response is going to do its thing, right? The server response is functionally going to do its work, right? So we don't really need to do a whole lot. We're going to need to do off guard, but what we're going to do is we're going to comment these out and show you the difference, okay? Now, the second we log in, right? Because remember, we can still see the list of students, right? We can still see the list of students. What we're going to do in a minute, and go to the student list. Actually, we need to make sure. Oh, yep. Oh, no, I don't want to create another service user. No. Hopefully it'll fail. Hopefully it'll fail. Sometimes we make mistakes. I went too fast. Good, 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 good. So ng serve, and we don't need the 0, so we're fine. So we need to make sure that we're not making a mistake here. Okay. But I'm going to talk about the difference between session storage and local storage in just a second. Essentially, what I'm going to do is make the page not load. I'm going to make you, I'm going to use ng init to do an if statement to see if the session storage is set. If it's set, we're going to go ahead to the login page. But here we go. We should be able to get to the login page. Oh, I never set up the route. So there is no login page. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm sorry. That is one thing I forgot to do. So doesn't matter. I like to put it near the top. And then we're going to go login. And I'm going to go, excuse me, login component, bank. And we don't have to recompile it or anything like that. It should automatically work. Then we go to local login. And then I'll have to fix this at some point. This is kind of rough looking. But remember Mike. And oops. Nope. We're still getting a 401. How are we still getting a 401? Oh, we're still getting a 401. Because now we're logged in. So we should be able to. Okay. So the post is a problem because I got a 400. Oh yeah. Um, we do have problems. We do have some issues. Couple things we need to fix, I think, is causing the problem. Is we did add, in fact, a sorry, advisor string, and we're trying to submit it without the advisor, which is why that's failing. But it should have worked either way. Because now that we're logged in, uh, yeah, we tested it already with the thing. So go back to login. I'm gonna go pick Mike and I'll pick Ruth. This is the wrong password. And I get a 401 request. As you can see, I stayed here. I do need to change some things. We do need to make sure that clears the website and some other stuff, but you can see it stayed. I entered the wrong password, and so it stayed. I'm going to go with Ruth. And I'm going to refresh the page. All right, you need to stop doing that. 401 is in fact unauthorized. Why are we getting unauthorized? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, I apologize. I am missing one quick component. I'm going to pause the recording. We'll come back to it. Essentially, I'm going to show you what it is. Okay, but I don't remember the code and fix it. But so you see how we're allowing the credentials, right? But by default, we're never sending the credentials along. So we do need to fix that, and we're going to do that in just a minute. I'm going to stop the recording and come back. I'm sorry, it's one thing I forgot. All right, thanks.